Hello, we're going to make the base for our garland, and to start obviously we need to decide how long we want it to be. I've just got a short piece of ribbon here for demonstration purposes, but something about a centimetre wide will be absolutely fine. I've chosen to do a garland that's going to go over my window, possibly in the living room, and I'm going for about 6 foot long, and I've worked out I think I'm going to need approximately 200 of these little leaves. Now I've chosen a leaf, as you can see, that's about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, in a simple shape. But if you wanted to make fewer leaves, make bigger leaves. You see what I did there? I wanted something quite ornate, so that's what I'm going to do, as you'll see from the sample. But if you want to make a variety of leaves, also do the same. It's the same technique for either kind of leaf. What we're going to do is take our piece of cardboard, it's thanks to Angel Slices this time, fold it in half, so you're only drawing the shape once and cutting it out once. Use your bone folder to put a nice keen crease in it, and then, as I say, I just drew a very simple leaf shape, but it could be that you want to do something a bit more palmate or ornate and a bit bigger, so that you can fill up some of the space quickly. Cut it out with your not fabric scissors and cut it loosely to start off with, and then follow the line all the way around till you've got a nice simple leaf shape. And because we're bulk manufacturing, I'm going to do a quick how to produce more than one at a time. So I did it, obviously you can see the felt I've got is a little bit creased, but I'm quite happy that that adds to the leafiness of the leaves. And when you've got them stitched together and they're only this big, don't worry about ironing it, unless you're really bored, in which case crack on, go for it. I'm going to use this permanent marker to mark out my leaf, but obviously anything, as long as you can see it on your felt, is absolutely fine. All the way around, doesn't matter if you're drawing it. You're just going to use the same one for all of the 12 or 300 leaves that you make. All the way around. I've drawn my leaf shape, one leaf, but I want to replicate it a number of times. And I've found that by doing a concertina fold, you can actually cut through about 5 layers. But the first thing I want to do is cut a strip that's the size of the leaf. So I'm going to turn it round. I'm going to use this leaf as my template. I'm just going to cut the size thus. And then I'm going to fold it along this straight line, keeping it the same height all the way along. And this will allow me to probably do about 15 leaves out of this one strip. It's quite a big piece of felt that I had in this green. But you could do it a variety of different colours. You don't need to stick to one colour. Obviously, the different flowers that we're doing are not necessarily going to have the same kind of leaves. Don't need to be too accurate, fortunately. To one side. Then I found my leaf again, there she is. Okay, time to fold leaves. So using this as our top layer, we're going to then concertina to the size of the leaf. So fold it over once, and then lining up this edge with the next fold, fold again. Be as economical as you can with the fabric, but obviously you need to give yourself a little bit of room to cut so your leaves all end up the same shape. So can you see I've made sure I've got the fold at the on side of the line in both cases. You can probably fold up to a maximum of 5. So I've got 2 double folds and a single fold there. Put a pin through the middle of your leaf. There we go. And then to make it a little bit easier, I just cut off the end where the bulky fold is. Set your little bits to one side, and then it's just a case of cutting around the leaf shape, but making sure you're cutting through all of the layers and cutting the black bit off as you go, the pen mark. But you can always come back and trim that off, and obviously the layers underneath won't have the pen mark on, which is an advantage of doing it like this. There we go, trim off some little black bits, and we end up with a pile of 5 leaves, which is quite a handy way of setting it to one side and knowing you've got 5 leaves in that stack, and then obviously you can count them as you go through the many hundreds. Here's some I prepared earlier, that's our full 10. And with these little bits, the bits in between, what I've done is I've made some smaller leaves of varying random shapes that I'll add later as decoration, I think. I didn't want to waste any of the felt that I got, and it makes it just a little bit more interesting with a bit of variation. So yeah, use those to make smaller leaves, and I put a little tuck in them, which we'll do later as well, just to give them a little bit of dimension on those little leaves. We're going to do the same thing with the bigger leaves as we go along and we add them to the ribbon, but I'll show you that in a bit. Now we've got our stack of leaves all cut out. Obviously the stack will be considerably larger than this. We're going to start thinking about the background, and just to estimate approximately how many you need, we're going to go for about a foot of ribbon, and if we lay them over like this, one over the next one, you can work out that you're going to probably need about 10 to the foot. So if you decide to do a 6-foot garland, such as I am, you will need 60 of these laying down. And then we're going to have some crossways crossways leaves as well. So you need to take into account that you're going to need a couple or 1 or 2 every few. On the sample that I've made, you can see that I've put a couple in every fold. That's my own personal choice. I didn't need to give myself that much work to do, but I quite like the way it hangs. And I'll also put some of the smaller leaves on some of these little leaves along the way as well, as and when. I think it's going to be a labour of love over the next few months whilst I'm able to spend some time on it. But at least to get it started, I'm quite pleased with how that's come out. So you'll need to allow for 2 or 3 every gap, or however you want to do it. I'm not going to judge in any way. What we're next going to do is take these off again and then run a single line of stitching all the way down. Now, if you haven't got a machine, you can do it by hand, but at this point, for the sake of expediency, I suggest that you get the sewing machine out and add these in one by one as you're going along, which I'll show you now. The next stage is to stitch our leaves onto the backing to disguise the ribbon. I'm going to start by placing one over the other. I haven't pinned it because I just don't think it's entirely necessary for something that's just going to be in the background, and it's quite nice that, you know, nature isn't entirely perfect. Lower your needle down into your leaf and stitch a couple of stitches backwards and then on. And what I'm doing is I'm stopping about a centimetre before the next leaf, lifting the press foot down, press foot up even, placing the next one on, and then just stitching on. So you will get quicker, and it won't be quite so, it doesn't seem quite so laborious. It does cover up quite quickly, and it's quite a satisfying finish to it. So hopefully you'll enjoy doing it. I'm just going to do a few because this isn't a spectator sport really, is it? Fond as I am of my giant hands. So we're just going to continue doing that all the way down the ribbon till you get to the very end. Once you've completed your stitching of your leaves onto your ribbon in the background, I've just done it onto one side. You could do it onto both sides. I quite like the green ribbon showing, or if you used a contrasting colour, it might be quite nice to have a colour wound through it as well, to give it a little bit of interest. What the next thing we're going to do is add some of these detail leaves to the side. So using any extra leaves you've cut out, or maybe some of the smaller ones that you've cut out. It could be that you want to do a variety of different sizes, but I've started this one, as you can see, with a leaf either side. And all I've done is I've put a tuck into each leaf, and I've also tucked, as I've stitched through the middle there, it's tucked the leaf that I've stitched onto the ribbon. It'll make sense in a second when I start. So I've just threaded up a needle at great personal expense, and I'm now going to take one of my leaves, pinch together one end of it, and it doesn't matter if it's absolutely in half or that it's, you know, you do it in half and end it with 2 leaves, if that makes sense. It's really personal preference. So I'm going to just stitch a little knot into this to get me started. Once you get going, it's quite quick. It's just a case of maybe a bit of mindfulness over this. It's not like we haven't got time at the moment, and it's quite a nice project to keep adding to, I suppose. So you could start off with a very basic version and add more leaves as the summer goes on and make a real proper summer garland, but springy at the moment. So I've stitched all the way through there. You see I've made a knot in it, and then just going to pinch the join between these 2 leaves to form another one, and I'm going to stitch all the way through. So I'm taking in a little bit of the ribbon, folding the next leaf in half, and the other side of the ribbon as well, which I'll show you in a second. So can you see I've just stitched that up so that it's sandwiched the whole lot. Then I'm going to take my next leaf and do the same again. So pinch it together, but this time I haven't really got to put a knot in it. I'm just going to go straight through and stitch it onto the other side. So if you've got big ambidextrous hands and nimble fingers, then you could fold all 3 layers together at once and just stitch them through. And I quite like the way these little bits make another little leaflet, as if it's budding. Can you see these little bits? I quite like that. A happy accident. Then we just need to stitch a couple of little holding stitches in place. I have used black, but it doesn't seem to matter. It's thread wise, it's not absolutely fine. Any colour will do, as long as you don't mind it showing a little bit. Depends how neat you are. There she is. Trim off the thread, and then I need light the way because you know what I'm like. And then push a thumb in. Nice leafiness, huzzah!